The magic of Elden Ring is that you're able to do whatever you want right from the start. If you want to make a mad dash to Mesmer in the Shadow Keep, you're free to do so. But that doesn't mean that there aren't some highly advisable things that you should do before you go knocking on Mesmer's doorstep. And so here are our picks for the 8 things that you should do first in Shadow of the Erdtree. Number 1, collect Scadutree Fragments. Enemies and bosses in the Realm of Shadow are tuned to be much harder than outside in the Lands Between, to the point where just leveling yourself up the standard way by spending runes to add to your attributes probably won't make a huge difference. Fortunately, you can find Scadutree Fragments all throughout the realm, and exchange them at a Site of Grace to level up your Scadutree Blessing, which will give you a base increase of about 5% to the amount of damage you deal and a decrease in the amount of damage you receive while you're in the Realm of Shadow. Now, I'm not going to list off where to get every single Scadutree Fragment, because there's tons of them, and we've got other ground to cover in this video, but you should know that you will always find one at one of Miquella's crosses, and the first 3 of those can be found fairly easily right from the start. So make sure to pick up the first one at the 3-path cross, near where you first begin. Then, to the west, right in front of the main gate to Ballarat, another one right before entering Castle Ensis, and right here next to Theoliae in the Gravesite Plain at the Pillar Path Cross Site of Grace. You can also find 2 fragments east of the Gravesite Plain Site of Grace at the Church of Consolation. To the northeast of the Scorched Ruins, you can kill one of these shadow enemies holding a jar over their head to grab another one. Next up, beginning from the main gate cross right outside Ballarat, head south and take the path along the cliff to reach the Cliff Road Terminus Site of Grace. From there, head west above Prospect Town to reach a graveyard, where there will be another sparkling enemy with a jar holding a fragment. If you want even more of an early leg up, you can also skip Castle Ensis and get right to the Scadu Altus by following the path down to the Poison Swamp to the southeast of the Castle Front Site of Grace. Keep an eye out for a spirit spring that is blocked by a couple of rocks. Simply break the rocks up ahead to clear the jump, and then hop up 2 cliffs to reach the Fort of Reprimand. From here, you can jump over the edge to reach the main path of Scadu Altus, where you can head north to reach another cross by the Morth Ruins, and another Scadutree Fragment. From there, follow the path northwest, take a left at the fork, and you'll reach yet another Miquella Cross at the High Road Cross Site of Grace. Finally, head to the northwest from the High Road Cross to reach the Church of the Crusade, where you'll be invaded by a tough enemy, but you should be able to quickly snag the fragment from the altar without having to put up a fight. There are of course many more fragments to find, but these are the ones that you can get fairly easily right from the beginning of the game without having to beat any bosses. Number 2, collect Revered Spirit Ashes. Less important than the Scadutree Fragments, but still important nonetheless, are Revered Spirit Ashes. These will allow you to increase the strength of your Spirit Ash summons. Here are a handful that you can find right from the start in the Gravesite Plain. The first one can be found to the southeast of the Scorched Ruins, at the base of a small headless statue. Keep an eye out for these in the future, as they will always have a Revered Spirit Ash. You can find another one north of the Great Bridge, north side of Grace, at the abandoned alien village. Head to the back of the village and check the right side for another statue. Just be careful of the flying enemies. Next to the east of Prospect Town, south of Belurat, look for a small pond with turtles along the eastern cliff. And if you decide to head into Belurat first, you can find one early on right here in this dungeon as well. Number 3, collect the first 2 maps. Navigation through the Realm of Shadow will be much easier if you've got an actual map to keep track of where you are. To that end, you should strive to at least collect the first 2 map shards as early as you can. The first one is super easy and can be found to the northeast of the Gravesite Plain side of Grace, right before the Scorched Ruins. The next one is in Scadu Altus, and you can snag it while you're picking up Scadutree Fragments using the method I described earlier to skip having to go through Castle Ensis. It's located along the path to the northwest of the Morth Ruins. These 2 maps should easily hold you over for the early game, especially because the later ones are actually pretty difficult to find. We'll have a separate video showing where to find all of the map fragments to unlock the whole of the Realm of Shadow. Number 4, talk to NPCs to begin their quests. As you're traveling to the various Miquella Crosses, you'll almost always encounter NPCs there. Make sure that you exhaust all the dialogue from these characters so that you can always move their questlines along to the next stages. You'll find Freya by the 3-path side of Grace, then just up the path to the northwest in front of Belurat, you'll find Ansbach and more. By the Pillar Path cross side of Grace, you'll find Teolier, and also nearby, if you take the path back a bit and then take the fork leading south, you'll find another NPC named Igon, who really doesn't like Baal.
I will soon feast upon your heart. Mark my words, you too shall know fear.
There are more NPCs that you'll meet, but these are the ones that we recommend making sure that you talk to as soon as you can. Number 5, avoid fighting the giant Brazier enemies. For now anyway. In addition to listing a bunch of things that you should do, let's go over one thing that you shouldn't. Don't bother with these giant Brazier enemies that you'll see throughout the Realm of Shadow. They take forever to kill, can kill you almost instantly, and it doesn't really make sense to try to kill them right out of the gate when you can come back for them once your Scadutree Blessing level is higher. Number 6, fight the Blackgaol Knight. If you think you're ready for your first big fight, head to the west from the first side of Grace at the Gravesite Plain and look for the Western Nameless Mausoleum. Inside you'll find the Blackgaol Knight, who is a tough mini-boss that hits extremely hard. Our recommendation is to not get greedy, land jumping attacks when there's an opening, and if you see him two-hand his greatsword, consider just backing off and waiting until he switches back to either one-handed or switches to his crossbow. Defeating him will get you the Greatsword of Solitude, which is a great weapon for strength builds with a very strong Ash of War that gives you a ranged attack and a follow-up. And of course, you also gain the Solitude armor set, which is very heavy, but very cool nonetheless. Number 7, head to the Ruined Forge lava intake. From the castle front side of Grace, head southeast past the tents, but follow the path that veers right. You'll ride past a bunch of trolls in the middle of a fight, and then make your way to a small cave called the Ruined Forge lava intake. There's not much to fight here, and no boss, just plenty of stones, a smith script dagger, which is one of the new weapon types that can be thrown with either the light or heavy attack buttons, and once you reach the end by lowering the pipe, running up it, and examining the forge at the top, you'll get a highly valuable ancient dragon smithing stone and another powerful strength weapon in the anvil hammer. And finally, number 8, choose your first major dungeon. You're now officially as set as you could be to pick a direction and make some progress in the DLC. To that end, here are 4 options for you, and you can pick the one that you want to tackle first. First, you can head to Ballarat. This is probably the natural first location to go, as it's the closest major dungeon to where the game begins. The standard enemies are pretty easy, but there are a bunch of really tough knights and a fairly difficult invasion mini-boss that will certainly act as roadblocks. The boss of this area is also no joke, so if you find yourself struggling, don't be afraid to come back to him later once you've leveled up your Shadow Realm Blessing levels. Or, you could head across the bridge to the east and go through Castle Ensis. Everything leading up to the boss of Castle Ensis is much easier than Ballarat, but the boss is one of the toughest the DLC has to offer. Once you beat her, you'll open up another route into Scadutree and get her remembrance, which can net you a pretty great dual-like greatsword. A third option is to head towards the Dragon's Pit, located past the NPC Igon that we showed earlier. This is a much shorter and easier dungeon than both Ballarat and Castle Ensis, and will open up the Jagged Peak region, which will set you on a path to fight a lot of dragons, and you'll work through Igon's quest. If you're looking for a bunch of regular ancient or ancient somber dragon smithing stones to level up your new weapons, this is definitely a path that you'll want to travel. And finally, if you took the path that skips Castle Ensis and gets you right into the Scadutree, you can just explore the rest of this giant area. The Shadow Keep is the next big dungeon for you to check out, but we'd highly recommend waiting until you've got some more Scadutree Fragments under your belt. And those are 8 things to do first in Elden Ring's DLC, Shadow of the Erdtree. Thanks for watching, and for more Shadow of the Erdtree, make sure to check out our guide of things that we wish we knew sooner, our video breaking down all the new weapon types, and the best early weapons to get. And for everything else, keep it here on IGN.